Who's black? Who's white? Who's wrong? Who's right?
Once again, you're tuned in to the Frontline show on Intellectual Radio. I'm your host, Tyrone Muhammad, with Ricky Skills.
In the house.
Listen, as y'all know, powered by Support Your Local Weed Man. Once again, support localweedman.com and ECCSC. Oh man, we're gonna get right to it, man. Ricky was excited about today's guest, so you know we're gonna. It's about some mind food, some brain food, and we're gonna bring a lot of that to you all summer long. So, Ricky, I'm gonna let you introduce our brother Minister Jew. Go ahead and give him the introduction like you know how.
Okay, first of all, man, I want to introduce my brother Minister Jew. This brother here, man, he really changed lives, man. I'm talking about in real life. I seen it happen. I worked with him for about a year. I've been doing his practices, man. It changed my life, you know. And I titled the show, "The Wages of War is Fought in the Mind First," because Ty, he on the front line every day. Y'all see that? He on the front line, and everybody can't be a frontline Ty. No. You know what I'm saying? Everybody can't do what this brother doing out here. And the thing about it is, I want to talk about the mind state, because energy is everything. First of all, energy is everything. So I brought this brother in, man. I'm gonna let him, tell you what he do. And I'm telling y'all, people, it's just how you think can change things. Because I also want to speak on the mind state of people who want to threaten somebody who trying to help them. That's why I mainly brought him in. Because I'm gonna let him do him. Here you go, brother. You do your thing.
Well, first of all, I want to say I appreciate you guys for bringing me on your platform. Yes, it's an honor. It's an honor to come on here and kind of drop a few of the jewels that I have for your audience. I guess for people to get a brief introduction of who I am and what I do, I go by the name of Minister Jew. I've been teaching mind science, mindfulness, what people call the law of attraction, that type of thing. I've been teaching it for at least 10 years. Yeah. And not the fluff stuff, right? Because I'm amongst men here today, right? And so I kind of got a feel for what the audience may be used to. Yeah. And so not the fluff stuff, but the real stuff. Talking about case studies, neuroscience, right? Getting into the nuts and bolts of what's actually going on in the mind. Like, do you guys know you got magnetite in your skulls?
What's that, bro?
Crystals, little magnets.
Tracks.
Okay. And so when you really start to study the body and what you're really capable of doing, it just becomes a natural phenomenon when you put the implementation and the practice to it. I'm an author. I've published 2 books. Spiritual Wisdom for the 21st Century is one that I co-authored with my homie Noble Ampu. And then my last book that I wrote back in 2015 is called Imagination at Work, where I really, really got into some of the things that I prefaced earlier in this conversation. A father, husband, all that good stuff. You know what I mean? So that's in brief, in a nutshell, who Minister Jew is and what he represents.
Okay, Jew. Thanks, man. So I want to jump right to this subject right here. My brother, man, Tyrone, man. I'm talking about, man. He done came here, man. He put boots on the ground for real. He done made a lot of things happen, man. He done got more people jobs than job services.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Dope. He didn't open up a lot of eyes, bro. He did a lot of things for people, man. And my brother, he get threats, man, from other brothers.
Right.
Like, what, man? Like, what could make a brother want to do something to another brother that's trying to help him? Like what function could a brother be on, man, to feel like that, to even do it, to even think it?
Well, that's a great question. I don't know all the ins and outs to that, but I can touch on it from the surface level of what I perceive it to be. So, it's a saying, your skin folk ain't always your kin folk.
True.
And a lot of times that trick bag will get us caught up.
Yeah.
Because we could be so dedicated to the fight to uplift people who look like us to the point where we don't realize that we're all different, on the inside. And so
we emphasize that again, on the inside.
Right. We all different on
the inside.
Exactly. And so you can run into some hurdles, some brick walls trying to get through to people, whatever your message is. If it's not coinciding with what they deem to be prosperous or beneficial for them, whether that be in the short term or in the long term. And then what you have to do is you have to understand the programming that has been constantly been reinforced into the minds of people from what they're constantly watching on television, what they're constantly listening to on the radio, the things that they're constantly engaging on social media. Yes. These things, and I always teach this to people. Like, a lot of times people say, it doesn't matter what you believe. The neuroscience says different. Oh, I'm sorry. No, yeah. The neuroscience says different. And what happens is, within the method of programming, when something's being introduced into the psyche and it gets anchored over and over and over again, it starts to create and generate a belief around whatever the programming is that's coming into their environment or into their awareness. And then what you believe starts to shift your perception. And when that happens, you start to behave different. You start to act different. So if all people have seen throughout and also heard is, you can't trust the black man, or
fear.
Exactly. Fear. Black men can't work well together. That's constantly being reinforced into the people whoever you're engaging with. Then even if we think that they may be good people intrinsically, they're not going to be able to get past their beliefs
without doing some mind work.
Exactly. Without doing some type of alterations and running that programming in reverse, which essentially is going to take new ideas. And that can become very difficult because they got something called social cohesion, where it's amazing study when you really start to read these things. You would think, you're doing something rational, you're doing something logical, it's positive. You would think like, wow, this makes sense, right? Well, logic and reason is not always something it's not a given, although we think it should be. Yeah. It's not, and that's what makes it so.
Ain't coming.
It's not. It's not. And what they find out through these studies is that it all comes down to these tribes or these social networks that people tend to cooperate together or form these conglomerates together, even if what this brother is pushing is positive, and the results are obviously present, and you got all the reason, all the logic, all the rationale in the world to do it. If another group of people, if it's threatening their exactly, then it doesn't matter how much truth is in it. they're not actually seeking the truth. They're actually looking to validate their already core beliefs. And so it becomes, it's like trying to pin Jello to a wall. It's almost impossible if they're not willing to at least
be open.
Be open to a new conversation. And then you have to be wise enough to know how to get them to open up to a new conversation. And one of the ways you do that is by acknowledging a portion or a faction of what they're saying. Because in anybody's stance, there's going to be some ounce of truth in it somewhere, right? And so if you can grab a hold to that one portion of what they may be in opposition
so you're saying, even if that truth is envy, jealousy, and self-hatred, it's still some truth in it.
According to the experiences that they've had.
That's true.
So you have to be wise enough to be able to identify where is the root at. And then if I can pose the proper questions around the envy, around the jealousy, and then extend what would appear to be an olive branch, because now you're saying, okay, I understand. At that point, you'll be able to introduce new content to them, because now they're looking at you like, okay, it's a portion of what I feel or what I'm thinking that he's able to align with. And that will open the door for you to shift
their thinking,
their
frame
thinking.
of reference, frame of thought.
Exactly.
And on that note, we listen. Great conversation, people. You're welcome to call in and communicate with our brother, Minister Jew. That's 708-223-8953. That's 708-223-8953. And we're going to continue with this discussion after this break. So come on back, get ready, call on in. We're waiting to hear from you. This is the Frontline Show.
Frontline.
Who's this? Who's that? Who's I? Who's now? Who'll follow? Who's hollow? Who's roll? Who's roll? Who's deep in need? Who will sweat? Who will bleed? Who will beg it? Who will plead in the land of the free? Who's black? Who's white? Who's wrong? Who's right? Who will stand and who will fight in the day or the night? Who is speaking? Who will write? Who's protecting copyright? Sing your soul, sacrifice for the fame in these lights. Let me know what's your price. Who's gonna host these parasites? They don't care about your life. No emotion, cold as ice. Who's fire? Who's hired? Who's a boss? Who's a slave? Who's in purpose? Who's astray? Who's playing? Who's play? What's the cost? Who's paid? What's the loss? Where's the game? Where's your mind? Where's your brain? What are the laws in this game? Who's wild? Who's pain? Who's a child? Who's a blame? Who's normal? Who's strange? Who's forgotten? What's your name? Do you know me? Or do you know you? Are you in service or do you feel used? Can you afford time or are you on the grind? Are you future forward or do you press rewind? Do you feel sorrow or do you feel? Do you get love?
Welcome back to the Frontline Show. And listen, once again, we always want to bring you all food for thought, and that's what this is about, being on the front line of the issues. We need to also be on the front line of mental health and our mind power. We must do that. And one thing, Minister Drew, I wanted to just talk about when we was in prison, even in prison, although we kind of isolated and have like secluded spaces, we still perform classes of mindfulness, yoga, meditation, even in prison. People out here don't even have time for a moment of silence.
Exactly.
We often are forced to be silent in prison to find that voice, because God didn't, I always say, he rescued me. He didn't incarcerate me. He rescued me, right? In a way that it allows me to tap into something that otherwise, if I'm busy chasing a way of life, a living, the hustle and bustle of life,
Right.
and this activity is just cool, women, drinking, all the different stuff that's in people's lives that distract them from even going inside self. Even to a point where I wrote a book called Men on the Inside.
Mm-hmm.
Observations of Deviants, Prison, 13 Character Types.
Mm-hmm.
So all these guys are particularly inside of themselves in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
But although they are confined and have all opportunity to change their thinking and their behavior based on the crime they committed, they still never go inside to figure out what's wrong with them while they're waiting to do time.
Exactly.
They don't use time wisely.
Exactly. And you know what, Chap? To be honest with you, bro, I see more people locked up in the world than I see in the penitentiary.
No doubt.
You know what I'm saying? So
actually more so.
Yes, more so, because we got so many distractions and everything. So Jew, tell me, you were saying how to observe someone else in order to get through to them. So can that process can it be used on ourselves? Like, can we use that process to heal ourselves and find out the core of our problem and get rid of it?
Well, this is another great question. So I don't know how familiar the audience may be with quantum mechanics or quantum physics.
Yes.
They got something called the double slit experiment, where they have determined that measurement or observation collapses a wave. And when I say that, I'm talking about light, photons, electrons, all of these things. And I don't want you to think out there like this is something so foreign, because see, you are made of all of these things. You're not
light.
Exactly. In fact,
more so,
the most abundant cell in the human body is called the astrocyte, because it looks like a star.
Whoa.
And it's located
everywhere in the body. Okay.
So that's that light there.
Absolutely. You have brain waves, beta, alpha. So it's no separation between you and what I'm talking about. Some of the terms may be like, well, I never heard of it before, but that's not important. We just gonna strip it down to the nuts and bolts.
Putting a title on it, but it's still universal.
It's
an application.
It's the application, exactly. And so, what they've discovered is that if everything in our physical experience is made of atoms, which it is, and human observation impacts the way that this light is formed, it literally collapses from infinite possibility to a definite finite state. And so we do it all the time. It's called, let me tell you what it's called in pop culture. We call it speaking into existence.
Yeah.
That's what we call it in pop culture. And we see it
intuition.
Exactly. And we see it in a way where it's not always beneficial, because we don't know that we're working a law. And if you're unconscious of the law, then you will use it haphazardly to your not to your benefit. So you see stuff like Juice WRLD, who will make a record where he says something like, we don't even make it to 21, and then he dies 5 days before his 21st birthday. Right. Or you'll see a video with Triple X where he's looking at himself in a casket, and 5 months later, he's literally in a casket. Like, I could go on and on with these examples. It's some more out here that'll blow your mind that we really had time to go in. Yeah. But
Pac, them, all them,
Biggie, everybody. And so when Skills asked that question, of course you can utilize it to benefit. It doesn't have to be used in a way where it is detrimental. And so this is what I've been teaching people to do for years and years and years, is how do you conscientiously use it to impact your own experience? And you do it through a form of mindfulness that I like to incorporate called visualization. So you'll see these top execs, you go read some of these articles, CNBC, you got all of these people, you got neuroscientists coaching people, 5 Fortune 500 companies utilizing the principle of visualization, right? You got all these case studies that show, listen, people, let me show you how powerful this thing is. Skills could be hooked up in on an EEG machine 30 miles away from me. And this has been documented in peer-reviewed journals. He could be 30 miles away from me, hooked up to an EEG machine. I could be right here in this studio hooked up to an EEG machine. If I visualize like I'm touching his hand, his EEG machine will go off 30 miles away as if he's physically being touched. It's documented as a fact. So what has to happen is more people like myself, because the problem is it's not enough people who look like me who are having this conversation inside of the community. It's being held by other doctors who don't necessarily have my pigment. And I understand people not vibing to that who look like me, because even when you study politics, they'll tell you people tend to vibe with who look like them.
Clearly.
Right. So if nobody's talking about
these, that's why they talk about your issues.
Yeah.
Even if they don't do anything about it.
Yeah, they use
so prison reform, re-entry, social change, violence prevention, but yet the resources don't match.
And I do want to not to cut you off, Jew. I want to say this, man. Like, this is crazy, y'all. And I'm gonna show y'all how he not lying. He'll tell you. I used to watch him, well, I still do, but I started watching him and Noble Lampoon on YouTube like 2016, something like that. And I used to watch him, and honestly, I would sit up there and think to myself, man, I need to work with them. I promise you. 2 weeks later, this man calls me and says, I want to work with you. I see your art. And what I tell you, I said, man, I said that I wanted to do this. Let's do it.
He did. That's a true story.
So when he came to me with the contract, showed you how serious I was about the information, I didn't charge him no money. I said, I want them techniques.
No doubt.
I want the information. And after I got the information, bro, I promise you, my income went up 4 times.
Facts.
Because it started off with check for the check.
That's right.
That's the first. He had me checking for a check every day.
That's right.
Now I get a check every month from my art.
Exactly.
Like, I can't even get it, but
I'll explain it for you. I'll explain it for you. So because the first question is, how do we utilize it for ourselves?
Right.
Well, here's the science behind it. Inside your limbic brain, you got a structure called the hippocampus. Okay. And this structure is responsible for your spatial orientation and your memory. Okay. Once you incorporate an image, and it becomes difficult for a lot of people to utilize it, especially if they've been through traumatic experiences or coping with depression, because these things actually shrink the hippocampus. So usually when people come into the memberships, first thing I tell them, look, you got some traumas, we need to work with that first so that your garden of Gethsemane can be fertile, right? So what happens is when you start to upload imagery to the hippocampus, that structure actually sends a signal to your frontal lobes, which is the command center of the brain, where all of the planning takes place. So what essentially happens is this. The moment that you upload the proper imagery of what it is that you want to experience and you anchor it, which is key, you have to anchor it, which I always tell people 21, 28 days to anchor a phenomenon in the mind. Some people longer, some case studies say 66 days. But once you anchor it and you start to send the signal to the frontal lobe, you know what happens? You got something called RAS, the reticular activating system, which is a bunch of networks in the brain working together to have your brain start to act as a magnet and a map.
Act like a what?
A magnet and a map. So now you become more aware of what's in your environment. It could be things that was already there that you were overlooking because you weren't uploading the proper software so that you can be conscientious that it was in your environment. Listen, they have studies where,
and that's interesting in many forms. Tell
them about How much money in testimonies? That's what I want you to tell.
About in 6 years, we had like $7 million in collective testimonials. In about the last 5 or 6 years.
From your classes.
From the classes.
From your members.
From the members.
From your process.
From our and from people who it'd be people who not even in the membership would just inbox me, Jew, this happened, or Jew, that happened. It happens all the time.
So that's real. That's real, because as we was talking, me and a few other people in our co-op, when we building this co-op, it's so many people want to be a part of it. So as we build that co-op, you, of course, could be a part of that, most definitely. Just the opportunity to not bring people in the same mindset and consciousness in the same rooms, drawing on the same processes, bro, to get at some success, economics, wellness, health. Bro, all of that we need to do that and build and continue to do that from different groups and spectrums.
Exactly.
So I want to continue to touch on that. And the other thing you mentioned, right? These synapses and just sitting back, analyzing and thinking about what you want. For 21 years, I've thought about building an organization powered by ex-cons. For ex-cons, for the communities, to prevent us, to rid us of the ills that we had a hand in creating. And people used to say, man, nobody gonna respect no organization called ex-cons for community and social change. And then when you try to break it down to people to say, hey, man, we're not returning citizens, the political correct term all the politicians want to use. We've convicted. We exit everything we've ever done against our community and ourselves. And X also represents a mathematical equation of unknown potential sitting in these prisons. So if you only see it that way, then no, you're not going to see the spirit behind why I want to keep it that way.
Exactly.
And we're rather the cons of everything and conservatism of what we do when we pull ourselves up by no bootstraps, but yet we create a space and motion for what it is that we want to do. So I had to envision that to come out in 3 years to be able to say, hey, man, I'm going full-fledged.
That's right.
And it has materialized.
Exactly.
And
Is it
still
safe
growing.
to say that Tyrone went to the quantum field and built that?
He absolutely did. Now, some of y'all, you heard it's Minister Jew. So I can't sidestep
No, you can't say
another aspect of this thing, right? So the brother said 21 years. So the book of Habakkuk tells you, hey, the vision has its own appointed time. It ripens, it will flower. If it be long, wait, for it is sure and it will not be late.
That's right.
So if you really understand what you're reading in that text, in that book, it's really a manifestation manual, man. To be honest. So I'm not like your typical minister. So I want y'all to really understand that. We get into the science in the book, not what people consider to be like the literal history of it.
Right.
But like, what's the psychology being rendered in the text? How can we apply it?
That James Allen. So as a man think it so easy.
That's right.
See, those books they've been practicing. White men have been practicing this for a long time.
Very long.
This is the tools that advertisement is made from.
Exactly.
Constant repetition.
That's right.
Ooh,
right. Just keep throwing.
That's right.
So the rappers come in and they help you to program. Why you think that the music labels will play all that music you talking about Gucci, Fendi, Louis, Patrick Cavassier, and all of this, and you create that in the person's mind, and all they see are the images of the things they received in their visual cues.
That's right.
They
you know how it go? It say, if I control what you see
in
here, I control what you think. If I control what you think, I control how you feel. If I control how you feel, I can predict what you're gonna do.
Exactly.
What you got? Go. No.
Because like once I got like what made this real to me, bro, was that I had already been studying this. And then when I ran into them and they were saying the same things that I read and the same researchers that I seen, like the research with the water,
Right.
like the research with the sound, bro. Like, don't nobody know a thought travel faster than light.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? That's just like you could be sitting up thinking about somebody. They know it.
But we really don't understand the power of what we're dealing with in this universe and even in ourselves. We can't understand the universe, and we know we can't understand that. It's so vast.
Exactly.
So our internal universe, like I always say to people, man, here we are sitting on the earth that's traveling at a rate of 1,037 and a third miles an hour, and you don't even feel it moving.
Yeah. Amazing.
If it stopped, everything going in the atmosphere.
Right.
But the fact that we walk as though we somebody. Listen, this is what I'm telling the arrogance of mankind and thinking we're more special with no knowledge, with no information, and no true understanding of all the things, the vastness that is existence, right? And we walk the earth disrespecting one another. We walk the earth killing one another. We walk the earth doing things as though we in control of individuals, bro. And then when don't even imagine nothing outside of our own environment.
Yeah.
Right.
So hey, y'all come on back. I told y'all this finna get heated up. Let's get started. So we here with Minister Jew on the Frontline Radio, powered by Support Your Local Weed Man. This is IntellectualRadio.com. Come on back in a few minutes.
Who's this? Who's that? Who's out? Who's now? Who'll follow? Who's hollow? Who's roll? Who's roll? Who's deep in need? Who'll sweat? Who will bleed? Who will beg it? Who will plead in the land of the free? Who's black? Who's right? Who's wrong? Who's right? Who will stand? Who will fight in the day or the night? Who will speak it? Who will write? Who's protecting copyright? Say your soul sacrifice for the fame in these lights. Let me know what's your price. Who's gonna host these parasites? They don't care about your life. No emotion, cold as ice. Who's fire? Who's hired? Who's a boss? Who's a slave? Who's in purpose? Who's astray? Who's playing? Who's play? What's the cost? Who's paid? What's the loss? Where's the game? Where's your mind? Where's your brain? What are the laws in this game? Who's wild? Who's pain? Who's a child? Who's a blame? Who's normal? Who's strange? Who's forgotten? What's your name? Do you know me? Or do you know you? Are you in service or do you feel used? Can you afford time or are you on the grind? Are you future forward or do you press rewind? Do you feel sorrow or do you
Welcome
feel
back
good?
to the Frontline.
Frontline.
Powered by Support Your Local Weed Man. So let me just say real quick to the people who just tuning in that may not understand what we say when we say Support Your Local Weed Man. We dealing with a phenomenon right now that's been and in my state that we have accepted hook, line, and sinker, where white men have been made legal dope dealers in these and making $1 billion a year off a product where our sons and our daughters, our brothers are still incarcerated for. The police still, out of 2,200 cases, only 177 of those cases of arrest was from white people. So that means 2,200 is other than white that's been incarcerated for cannabis this year. Just in general, when you start talking about numbers, where these ones have taken $1 billion off the streets, where white folks used to come out. They now got their own little corner dope houses in their suburbs and corner. I just passed one called Maribus or something right around the corner. They developed. They don't even know I'm coming to see them. But I'm just showing you that So when we say hashtag support your local weed, man, that's a movement to say, hey, we gonna keep doing it local. You done made it legal, but just like lottery or the number running, you done took the number running and made lottery, and you're victimizing our people even with the that. And now here we are. They have deemed the lucrative nature of this marijuana now. All of a sudden, now they have taken $1 billion in 1 year. We know it's more than that because the back door moved, and you wonder why it's an increase of carjackings, an increase of murders because of what it is that in home invasion. Because now you take $1 billion out of any corporation, it's gonna be a problem.
Yes.
So you take it off the street, you imagine what's happening, and they knew what they was doing. So now they're about to increase the prisons in another way, since they can't do it through drugs. As a weed as a gateway to everything else. With that being said,
we know that it's not going to happen overnight. You know what I'm saying? We know it's going to take a lot of work. But I do want to speak on what we can do for ourselves right now, because the whole thing is you can't build a whole with broken pieces. You can't build an army with wounded soldiers. So we have a tendency to doing it to ourselves and don't know that we are in our own way. We are attracting certain things in our lives and not even aware of it. Like Jew, give me some insight on how we cause our own depression, our own sadness, and how we give our own self negativity and thinking it's somebody else.
Right. Now, this is a sensitive topic because on the surface, it'll look like I may be saying turn a blind eye, but that's not what it is. And I want to start by talking about Hurricane Katrina. Will be a good segue for this conversation.
Okay.
So they were doing a study after the hurricane hit, and they were seeing who were the depressed people, in the area of New Orleans when it happened. And what they discovered was the people who did not watch the news, the people who did not engage in social media, they tended to recover and respond better emotionally behind that travesty. The people who were constantly engaging the news and constantly engaging the data, they were going through a fit. Wow. And so you have to really ask yourselves, what's more important? Is my personal mental health more important? Or is it the repetition and the redundancy of watching these phenomenons when they happen more important for me? And if you choose to keep making the observation the same way over and over and over again, you are playing part and parcel to another event of similar nature to reproduce itself. Now, this is why I mentioned quantum physics earlier, because and these people know this science. Let me tell y'all.
That's why they keep playing murders over and over. You just mentioned it. You got low turning. We talking about some serious stuff, but the viewership is low. But we talking about murder and death that continues, and wonder why these shortages keep, because the news media makes them celebrities. When we was game banging, if it made the news, we kept going. We like, man, did you see that? It made the news. Them shorties doing the same thing.
Exactly. And so and it's hard to tell somebody to separate from that, because when another event happens that's outrageous, they feel like they're the reason for them doing what they have been doing is validated at that point. See, I told you so. Look, they did it again. And this is why knowing how we're made is so important. If you knew that what you observe, you keep looping. It's actually called the quantum Zeno effect. You keep looping it. And let me give y'all an example of this. About 2 years ago, I made a placebo. For those that don't know what that is, that's like you take a sugar pill and all of a sudden you're feeling better. Yeah. You take a saline shot, all of a sudden you think you took some morphine. It became very popular. Henry Beecher was on the battlefield of World War II, and one of the soldiers had got hurt, and the nurse just acted fast. They was out of morphine, but she shot him with a saline, and he responded. His body responded like he had just took the morphine. Right? So it was in his mind. Yeah. Absolutely. So I did a placebo. I put one out with the Black Panther Party. I said, Black Panthers released from prison, da 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 da. And I made it look like a real news clip. Because when you study the placebo, you know where you got it. If you give it to him, you got to present it to him like it's real. Yeah. So I put that out. Let me tell you something. That year, it was like 4 Black Panthers suddenly got released from jail. And Ricky, I said, look, people, it looked like magic, but it's not. I don't want to call it that. It's consciousness. When you understand that you have the ability to facilitate such a thing, right? Then it would behoove you to want to use it more. Okay, so what happens? The same thing happens. You keep seeing that news story about this brother got shot, that brother got shot. Look, why is it that I challenge anybody out there? Name me 2 white people, first and last name, that got shot by the police last year. You can't do it. You can't.
But the news, George Floyd, they keep on, exactly, and we keep playing into exactly that. But they don't show the young little JoJo and them that got shot up on the corner in the gas station. That's not the news. That's not exactly. It's like if it bleed, it leads. Exactly. In the news.
And if it's black and bleeding, it's going to lead better. Yeah. So you have to ask yourself, what's behind this psychological mind game that's being played? And so you'll see it's so potent that let me tell you something. It is instances where a fact didn't become a fact until after a suggestion was made. So let me explain that. They took a group of sophomores at Stanford University, black sophomores, and they told them, look, you're about to take a test to challenge your cognitive ability. The moment that they use the word cognitive, that's like a tripper. They call them primers, where certain words trigger certain responses in people's mind predicated upon their upbringing. So you know how you hear every day on the news, oh, Chicago public school, the system is failing, the kids' grades are low, da 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 da. The SAT scores are down, da da. You hear this all the time, right? So even though these black children had made it to Stanford University, they still are a product from the environment in which they came from. So when they hear certain phrases and terminology, it acts as a tripper in their mind. So they took 2 different groups. One group of the sophomores, they hit them with the primers. The other group of the black sophomores, they didn't tell them that it was a cognitive test. They just said, hey, this is something, some minute test that you're taking is basically just like a survey. Let me tell y'all what happened in that case study. The black sophomores who took the test and were giving the primers, they all scored lower than their other black counterparts who were not told that it was a primer. In fact, the black students who didn't get hit with the primers scored just as high as their white and Asian counterparts on the test, which means what, Jew? A fact became a fact only after a suggestion, which means you can be constantly suggested upon and create a fact when the data is actually bogus. So Carter G. Woodson said it in his book. If you control the man's mind, if it ain't a back door, he'll find a way to cut one out and make one, even though it ain't a back door there to be cut out.
Exactly.
So you have to understand the power of your mind. You're creating phenomenon from suggestions that are being given to you, right? And because you're holding these people to a higher regard and standard, it got to be a fact because they said it's a fact. Right? And so it becomes a slippery slope because then you're dealing with, okay, well, what's true and what's not? And then you have to really be doing your digging and your research. But if you're diligent in your approach, then you will. But I just want to.
That's amazing, though, because you have people who claim to be intelligent as educators.
Yes.
As administrators.
Yes.
As elected officials. And as spiritual leaders.
Yes.
And they tell things to our people or suggest things to us. They do their best with the fallacy.
Yes.
And trying to explain it.
Exactly.
But oftentimes I think religion and politics becomes like a fairy tale to grown folks. Yeah, to grown folks. It's like you give children cartoons.
That's right.
And you give adults religion. And you give them politics. And then they will often divorce.
That's right.
Their own inner abilities or inner consciousness because they'll lean towards a party line or towards something a spiritual one of the monotheistic brands,
exactly,
opposed to tapping into that which makes them equal and
better. And you start to realize how much people are not even reading the text that they really say that they believe in. I mean, and then you have to ask yourself, well, why some of these ministers and pastors not mention some of these verses when it tells you, do you not realize that Jesus Christ is in you? Huh? What you mean? Or the Christ within you is the hope of glory. Or is it not written in your law that ye are gods? Yeah. So it's all through the text.
But it's not being taught.
But exactly. It's being, or the kingdom of heaven is within you.
Well, it's being taught. But if you constantly put little white flying angels in my face, you constantly pumping the reality that you make me believe this reality is some fictional fairy tale high. They don't say as it is on earth, as it is in heaven. You keep telling me to do it in heaven and skipping what earth is, but the pastor show us that he about the earth when he pull up with that Rolls Royce. See, we look into heaven to get golds and chariots of gold. But it's happening in your face, in your church.
I found out, since I've been into my study, I found out that came from a program. You know what I'm saying? That's why, just like when Martin Luther King was walking down the street, that was a program. That's why people be talking about now we doing a peaceful protest. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest
Ain't
with
no
you.
peaceful protest.
People don't know. The laws of the universe is totally different. They totally different from what we've been taught. And it's all in you. It's all in you.
Well, if they say, if a passage tells you that the kingdom of God and the kingdom of heaven is within you, then here's the next logical question that you have to ask yourself. Where in me
is?
See, where in me? And then if you that's what I say, people are hook, line, and sinker because certain people got charisma. It becomes tradition, and people get hooked to the tradition and the charisma, and they're not looking to go any further in their study. But if you read the text, they'll tell you that, quote unquote, Christ is buried in Golgotha. But when you translate the word Golgotha, it literally means the human skull.
Mm-hmm. Right. The crown, the dome, kingdom.
So if the kingdom of heaven is within me and Christ is buried in my skull, then that means I need to start examining what is going on in my brain.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
Literally.
Yes.
So when I make mention of words like hippocampus, caudate nucleus. All of these things are going. You will start to learn that you, and everybody else listening, you all are Christ. Exactly. It's not a man. It's not a man. It's a pattern that unfolds within you when you become aware. And so you also to read a passage where he says that you will do greater things than I, huh?
Right. Why am I pointing at you?
So Quran talks about the devil casting evil suggestions and firm resolutions. Yeah. This is a firm resolution right here. Yeah. And those suggestions that's constantly bombarding our brains remove the.
You know, what's this thing you be doing, Minister Jew, called quantum scriptures, bro? Like that's bro, when you sit down and you break them joints down, bro.
Well,
like you make me go. I swear to God, you make me go
read,
grab my book.
Go grab.
No, you make me grab my book and my pencil and my pen and my pen.
No question.
Well, what I developed that maybe about 3 years ago, because I know where people who look like me are at, and I don't want to abandon people with my message because that's not my purpose. I know that people are still hooked into that particular dynamic. So if I can bring you a larger perspective, if we can delve a little deeper into the same book that you are reading, because you're going to be forced to have to wrestle with yourself, right? You're going to be like Jacob.
That's one thing prison teach you. You don't have nobody but yourself.
That's right.
In that cell.
That's right. Yeah. You're going to have to wrestle with yourself. And you're going to have to say, now, look, it does say that. It does say, he said that this word means that. When you go translate it to Hebrew or Greek, when you go check it out, it does mean that. Yeah. So now you're going to be looking at who you've been listening to, and you're going to say, well, wait a minute. He or she's never ever said this to me.
Right.
But it's there. And so it eventually a light bulb goes off, and then you will realize that you've been playing with a middleman. Right. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that, like, I'm not saying that ministering isn't something that's needed, because it has its place. Right. But at the same time,
don't stop that.
Exactly. And
that's great. Exactly. Well, we're running out of time. So with that being said, I want you to tell the people how they could get in contact with you, brother. And it was great having you on the show, man. We learned so much, and you'll be back whenever you want to come back.
The lectures that I have at the center, I'm gonna invite them in.
Oh no, we gonna build. We got a lot of stuff we love to be involved with coming through on. So we happy to have you. I'm happy to meet you.
Likewise.
And when black men come together, man, we create universes, man. So
that's right.
We're going to keep exploding them and exploding
exactly.
them.
Exactly.
Just like the atoms.
Exactly.
And, man, you think I don't know this science, brother?
I know.
We going to bust this atom from the frontal lobe to the I'm just telling you, but it's time, man. It's been time. So the people, man, let them know how they can reach you, contact you.
Absolutely. Well, for people who are looking to contact me via phone, you can call the business line. It's 877-345-3797. Again, that's 877-345-3797 between the hours of 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. You can visit my website. It's theimaginationguru.com. I just had the site revamped last week. Put some new images up. I just had to do some minor, upkeep to the website. So it's brand new, fresh, looking really, really good. And if you're interested in more of the content, you can follow me on Instagram, The Imagination Guru on Instagram. I'm telling you, it's a library over there. Full of information, full of data to keep you inspired, motivated to become the best version of yourself. So those are the primary places that you can contact me and find me at.
Well, we love it, man. We love it, bro. We love it. Skills, go ahead and take us out, man.
Well, this I usually call You know, when I close the show out, I call it food for thought, man. You know, conscious corner, something like that. But anyway, just to piggyback off the show, people, you know, like watch what you say, because your words, they really create things, man. You know what I'm saying? Your thoughts really create things. You know what I'm saying? How you feel, it really create things. You know what I'm saying? And it causes what you call a butterfly effect.
Absolutely.
And you'll be wondering why this happening to you. So guess what? It's a such thing as cause and effect. So think positive, attract positive, and things will be positive.
And this is the Frontline show on IntellectualRadio.com. Come on back next week. We're going to have some more juicy topics, subject, and remember, hashtag support your local weed man. Hashtag support your local weed man. Hashtag support your local weed man. The movement.
Peace.
Who's this? Who's that? Who's out? Who's now? Who'll follow? Who's hollow? Who's low? Who's low? Who's deep in need? Who'll sweat? Who will bleed? Who will beg it? Who will plead in the land of the free? Who's black? Who's white? Who's wrong? Who's right? Who will stand and who will fight in the day or the night? Who will speak it? Who will write? Who's protecting copy?